You're listening to the Paranormal Peeps on the Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of indie podcasts with the Darkcast Network.
We have cookies. Between the realm of the dead and the journeys of the living, join Josh, Jamie, and Elisa as they delve into the vast world of the paranormal and breathe life back into the history of the departed.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I am one of your illustrious hosts.
Let's not oversell it here.
You're illustrious. What am I? Come up with a good one. Hurry. Come on.
I'm out.
He's like, not my call. Not my call.
I'm looking over at Jamie like, help me out here. She's like, you're on your own, bucko.
Hey, it is 1 o'clock in the morning right now.
It is.
We are just kind of zoning here a little bit.
A little bit. So as you can tell, we've got
Jamie
And Elisa.
And still Josh.
I'm on a run, guys. This is 2 in a row.
Woo! I know.
Actually, this is 3 in a row.
3 in a row.
3. We're on 3.
3 in a row.
Yes.
How is that even humanly possible?
Because we're doing it in one day.
That's right.
Because we're crazy.
We are continuing with our 50 states of hauntings. So a haunted house or building in every state.
Yes, ma'am.
And so let's get it kicked off.
Okay, so we are going to start in New London Ledge Lighthouse in Groton, Connecticut. This lighthouse is actually pretty cool. It's like out in the middle of the water by itself on a big slab of concrete. It's not even that big. I mean, it's big, but not like, it doesn't encompass more than the house.
There's no
really.
extra room.
No. It's cool because it's this like 3-story building, and then it's got like the bit of the lighthouse on the top out in the middle of the water. Story goes that in the 1920s or 1930s, the keeper of the lighthouse was so distraught that his wife had run off with a local ferry captain, and he jumped from the roof to his death. So it's believed that it's the spirit of this soul who still haunts the lighthouse. Over the years, many of those on duty reported all sorts of strange going-ons, doors opening and closing by themselves, unexplained knockings, bed sheets flying off the beds, cups moving around, boats unmooring themselves, TVs and radios turning on and off, which would be cool to see, the foghorn spontaneously sounding on its own, which would freak me out.
Yeah.
That's loud. That's not quiet.
Clear day, beautiful sunny day.
Yeah. And other unexplained happenings. And from time to time, the ghost of a tall bearded man in a slicker and rain hat has been seen. So a lot of things, but they say it's only one ghost. But if you look at it, I mean, it's all by itself. How many are going to be out there?
Right?
How many are going to float on out there?
Yeah, well, that looks like a great place.
That'd be a fun place to investigate.
It would be. But
but the area is so small, this slab of concrete that it sits on, that it's like you walk out the door, take 2 steps, and
you're off the edge.
You're in the ocean.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's a little intimidating.
It really reminds me of Harry Potter when they're running away from all the envelopes getting to their house, and they go off to this secluded place in the middle of the water. And it's like,
yeah,
I think it'd be so cool to stay there during like a big storm. I would love to stay there during a big storm.
You would love to see waves that are crashing into the 3rd floor of your building?
I totally would. Like, I really would.
I don't know that I could do that. I would be scared, like violent storms and those waves crashing up against
Well,
there.
if you think about it, it's been standing for how long?
Yeah, so isn't it time it fell?
Right?
Don't be negative.
I mean, you know how water erodes through concrete and rocks and stuff over the years?
Okay, way to break my dreams here.
Oh, no, you can still go. I'm just not going with you.
That's okay. I'll go by myself.
All right. Next, we are going to Vicksburg, and that is in Mississippi. This place is called McRaven House. This home was built in 1797 by Andrew Glass in a town called Walnut Hills, which is now Vicksburg, Mississippi. In the Civil War era, it was known as the Bob House, and it is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This home, McRaven, got its current name from the street it is located on. which is formerly called McRaven Street, but is now, as of today, Harrison Street. What?
I'm just being spicy.
Spicy. Okay, so McRaven has been on the Mississippi Department of Archives and History Historic Preservation list since January 8th of 1978. And it's also believed by many to be haunted and has been called the most haunted house in Mississippi.
Of course it is. Because everything is listed as the most
Everything
haunted.
is haunted.
Most haunted in the U.S., most haunted in the world.
Not only is it considered the most haunted house in the state, but apparently they claim it's the third most haunted place in the country. I don't know that I buy that, but then again,
Prove it.
I've never been there.
Right?
I need to go there.
Let's prove it.
Yeah. So somebody pay my way and let me stay there for a week or two, and I'll let you know.
Done. I'll pay your way.
Okay. So
Don't
thousands
leave
of
me behind.
you got to pay both our ways. Sorry.
Oh.
One goes, we all go.
Well, no one's going in.
Girl trip.
Girl trip. Oh,
Alan can pay my way.
you're gonna have to wear a skirt if you want to go. She said girl trip.
Oh,
so.
that's just a Saturday afternoon.
Okay, cool. Okay. So thousands have reported paranormal activity at the home, which had once served as a hospital for the Confederate soldiers. That just added to the reputation, and a few owners have died in it, and one was even murdered in the home.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
How? Did they say?
No.
Dang it.
I wish they did. But I'm sure if you do a little digging, you could probably
Figure it out.
figure it out, find something. So, yeah.
I bet you he was murdered by a murderer.
You know, you're probably right.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
It's late. We're getting stupid. Are we actually still getting stupid on purpose, or are we really losing it?
we're really losing it.
All right. So we're going to move on to Tennessee and to Graceland, but not really.
Graceland?
Yeah.
We're going to Memphis, Tennessee, though.
Oh.
And we're going to the Woodruff Fontaine House. Okay, so the house was completed in 1871, and it is believed that it's actually haunted by a Molly Woodruff, because that was kind of the happiest place that she lived, which I'm not sure how this is possible, because as they're living there, right, she gave birth to her first child, and 3 days later, the child died of yellow fever.
Ugh.
Sad.
I'm so glad I didn't live back then for just those reasons.
Right? Well, 3 months later, her husband falls out of a boat and dies while on a fishing trip.
Oh, my goodness.
That does not sound like a happy place. Well, Molly eventually remarries and moves into another house, has a new husband. They have a second child who also dies.
Oh, heavens. She doesn't have very good luck.
No, not very good luck at all. They believe that it's her ghost that roams the halls. I don't know why. They just believe that it is.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's all you got?
that's all I got.
She roams the halls. That's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now we're moving on to Woodburn Mansion in Dover, Delaware. This stately Georgian home was built in 1790 and bought by the state to use as a governor's residence in 1965. The first documented Woodburn ghost appeared around 1815, about 25 years after the house was built. Dr. and Mrs. Martin Bates, the owners at the time, were entertaining Mr. Lorenzo Dow, a well-known Methodist preacher. One morning at the breakfast table, Mrs. Bates and Mr. Dow to begin the meal with a prayer. Mr. Dow hesitated and asked if they could wait for the other guests that was in the house. Surprised, Mrs. Bates explains that there's no other guests. But Mr. Dow described in detail the gentleman that he met on the staircase. The older gentleman supposedly wore a powdered wig, knee breeches, and a ruffled shirt. This description bothered Miss Bates a great deal because it was the exact sketch of her father, Mr. Charles Hilliard III. Mr. Hilliard, the builder of Woodburn, has been seen by others since Mr. Dow. Mr. Hilliard, according to the Dover history, was known to enjoy a strong drink. If a glass of wine is left downstairs at Woodburn during the night, an empty glass in the morning indicates that Mr. Hilliard has been on the prowl again. Mr. Frank Hall, another owner of the house, claimed that to sometimes pass him on the stairs and described him as others had in the past. Another one is a small girl in a gingham dress and a bonnet. She carries a candle and she walks around the grounds, around the outside by the reflecting pool. And she was also seen by some guests in the Great Hall during an inaugural party, which would be awesome, especially when there's more than one that sees them.
That would be cool.
That would be really cool.
It's always nice to have like someone to back up your claim
To
that
have the
you see
validation.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you're not like, okay, it wasn't just me. I didn't just see that, right? Like, no, you did, because I saw it too. But I wonder if the one Mr. Hilliard walks up and down the stairs, because that's where they say they see him, if he takes notice of the live person walking past, or if it's
Just residual, just following the same pattern or a common pattern when he was living.
It's very possible.
Yeah. Hard to say without witnessing it yourself,
Well, exactly.
you know.
And even if you do, like, sometimes like one time you could walk up there and acknowledge somebody, and the next 20 times you could just walk up and not do anything.
That's true.
So it's always hard to say how.
But it's crazy that this has been going on since 1815.
That is crazy.
That's a
long time.
For the United States, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I know for other countries, that's like, that's nothing.
Just a drop in the bucket.
We've had things happen since the 1500s. Like, we have things recorded,
Well, that's 39 years after the country was founded.
Yeah. And it was only 25 years after this house was built. So it really is not long.
No. Pretty much just like, I died, I'm going to haunt this place.
Yeah.
Forever.
Pretty much.
Forever. All right. So next we're going to go to Missouri.
Misery.
And to the haunted Lemp Mansion in St. Louis.
Okay, what is it called again?
Lemp Mansion?
Lemp or limp?
Lemp.
Oh.
Lemp. Right?
Sounds about right.
Sounds good.
Close.
We'll go with it.
And again, here it's said to be one of the 10 most haunted places in America.
I just have to laugh because
Right? Everybody
is.
lays this claim, right?
Well, you know what's funny, though, is one place that's listed as the most haunted place in the U.S. is Waverly Hills.
Yes.
And it's not on the list.
Isn't that kind of baffling?
Yeah.
I mean, it is a little strange.
That's all right. You can do the third most and the 10th most. You got like the top 10 going for us.
Well, these ones that we're doing are mostly homes.
Yeah.
This is true.
We're not actually doing just buildings, we're doing homes.
Yeah, the places where people lived.
Yeah, families lived.
Yeah.
Yes.
for the most part.
For the most part.
Some of
yes.
mine aren't, but
Really, it says Lemp Mansion continues to actually play host to tragic Lemp family. It seems like it's ongoing. Over the years, the mansion was transformed from a stately home of millionaires to office space. It would decay into a rundown boarding house.
Yeah.
And finally, it's restored to its current state as a fine dining, theater, restaurant, and bed and breakfast.
haven't you noticed that these bigger homes for people back in the day, like these big houses, they didn't just continue to stay in the family. It seems like a lot of the ones that we talk about and that we see, they've been turned into a museum,
Restaurant,
a girl's home, boys' home,
bed and
a
breakfast.
school, bed and breakfast, a
So
hotel
many
of some
things.
sort or whatever, art schools.
But these places are expensive.
I know, because nobody else can afford that.
Exactly. So that they get taken over and turned into
Yeah.
something by the state.
Like, how can
essentially.
we reuse this? Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So the Lemp family actually began with, it looks like Johann Adam Lemp, who arrived in St. Louis from Germany in 1838. So he built a small grocery store at what is now Delmar and 6th Streets. So he just kind of sold common household items, groceries. He also sold homemade beer.
German beer?
Yeah.
Nice.
The light golden lager was a welcome change from the darker beers that were sold at that time. So people were really eating it up. The recipe was actually handed down by his father, and it was so popular that just 2 years later, he gave up the grocery store and then built a small brewery in 1840. And it was actually built by the Gateway Arch where it stands today.
Oh, that's cool.
We've
So
been
it was-
by the Gateway Arch on a couple occasions.
We have. We've seen it. We haven't been to it.
Or in it.
Yes, this is true. He first sold his beer in a pub that was attached to the brewery. This business grew and grew and grew and grew. And he started Lemp's Western Brewing Company, and it continued to prosper. And by the 1850s was one of the largest in the city. In 1858, the beer captured its first place at annual St. Louis Fair. So he was a millionaire off of this beer.
Oh, I'm sure.
by the time of his death. He died on August 25th, 1862, and then his son William began a major expansion of this brewery. He purchased like more land, just expanded, built a new plant, but the mansion, William Lemp's father-in-law actually built the house a short distance from the Lemp Brewery in 1876. William Lemp then purchased it for his family and utilized it both as a residence and an auxiliary office.
He was one of the first work-from-homers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why the home was really impressive at the time, he immediately began to renovate and expand the 33-room house into a Victorian showpiece.
Because 33 rooms isn't enough.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
my
also,
heavens.
from the mansion, he built a tunnel from the basement through the caves
All right, that's what I'm talking about.
to the brewery.
That's cool.
Yes.
I want a house like that.
In the midst, and obviously their fortune grew.
Yeah.
Things expanded, doing really well. Things are going great. So in the midst of all this success, the Lemp family experienced the first of many tragedies when Frederick Lemp, William Sr.'s favorite son, son,
No.
Oh, no.
and heir, apparent he died in 1901 at the age of just 28.
Ooh.
So Frederick,
Yeah,
who
that's
had,
young.
yes, that's, well, even for back then, right? That was still considered
Mhm.
Fairly young.
relatively young. Frederick, who had never been in extremely good health, died of actual heart failure. The devastated William Lemp was never the same afterwards, of course, and he began to slowly withdraw. So he was rarely seen in public after his son's death. And then on January 1st, 1904, William's closest friend, Frederick Pabst, also died, leaving William indifferent to the details of running the brewery. So he really didn't care.
I wonder if his friend also had a brewery,
I don't know.
because that is the same last name as a beer. So that'd be Pabst Blue Ribbon.
It looks like that, but I don't know if that's it or not. So even though he still arrived at the office each day, people noticed he was nervous and unsettled, and his physical and mental health began to decline. And on February 13, 1904, he shot himself in the head with a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson.
Well, that went dark.
That went dark. And these tragedies just continue on. There's just more and more. It's an inn now, so visitors to the inn have reported supernatural incidents. So they don't really specify what, but I mean, I guess use your imagination.
I'm sure it's footsteps, knocks.
Yeah, it's
the usual.
they list like things like hearing a piano. And the thing is we hear that a lot, hearing an organ, hearing a piano. But this one, what's strange about this one is the piano only plays one single note repeatedly through the night.
Oh, well, because like
That
back
would
then,
be annoying.
That'd be annoying.
yeah, like back then it was very common for people to play the piano,
Absolutely.
because that was a pastime. That was also something that they did for entertainment, right? They'd
Yes.
gather around together, especially rich people gather around and they'd have their parties and have their entertainment where everybody takes their turn playing the piano and
Yep.
singing. And
Dancing. Yeah.
the piano's common, but to hear just one note
The same note
every
over-
time.
through the whole night.
Oh, how annoying.
That would be annoying. They also get the sensation of odd vibrations from the floor, and they can't figure out where it's coming from. That could be a number of things, right?
It could.
You would have to be there to really look into it more. And they see strange things in their photographs.
That's cool.
So
That's kind of neat.
that is kind of neat.
That's something like I always want to see. I always want to find something in my photographs. It doesn't happen very often. It's very rare.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a time I have taken a photograph with something in it.
Yeah, it's only
And I'm
happened
not
a
sure.
couple times for me.
It's rare,
Yeah.
And it's
honestly.
nothing like amazing.
Like a full body apparition going, yo.
That would be cool, though.
Would be. So we're going to go to South Dakota, to a town I have been to. It is Deadwood, South Dakota.
But you have to talk like people do in South Dakota.
How do they talk?
How do they talk in South Dakota? I'm
That's-
from North Dakota.
Or is it North Dakota? Is North Dakota the accent? I hear it in you when you talk sometime.
Yeah, you
But
betcha. I don't know.
No, that's
No.
Minnesota.
Is it Minnesota?
Yeah,
Oh, maybe it is Minnesota.
that's Minnesota.
I don't know.
thought it
It's
was
also North Dakotan too. We're all German and Norwegian over in that area.
Dakota.
Dakota. This house was built in 1892 by W.E. Adams, one of the founding founders of Deadwood. So this is the Adams family house.
Yes.
It does exist, people. So like I said, they moved in 1894, And in 1934, he died.
Oh, so he lived there for a while.
For a little bit, yes.
Not long, but a little bit.
And after he'd passed away, his wife's like, we're done. We're out. Packed up, and didn't even really packed up. Left, closed the doors, and left everything completely intact.
Wait, what? I have never understood that. When people, like back in the day when people move and they leave all their things behind.
I mean, yeah, this is everything.
I don't understand. Why?
I don't know.
Maybe they just have so much money. They're like, I don't want to take this crap. I'm going to start new.
It could be that. It could be in the case of like, this was my mine and my husband's stuff, and I don't want it to be reminded of my husband's untimely death, and so I'm not going to take it.
Yeah.
So the house stayed as it is, full of stuff for 60 years.
Oh, wow.
No one touched it. It was a time capsule just sitting there. And it was partially restored and opened as a museum in 1998. So really, this is the only family that's lived in this house, and one person died in the house. So it'd be reason to speak that it's his ghost that still haunts the house.
Yeah.
And there are reports of the rocking chair in the house moving on its own, occasional smell of cigar smoke, because he did smoke cigars. And that's really all of the reported evidence.
Well, I mean, if nobody else has lived there,
Yeah.
I don't know. It is a museum now, though.
It is a museum now. And it's all the stuff that's in there is the Addams family stuff.
God, that's so cool.
So it'd be neat. And when I went to Deadwood, I never saw this house. I stayed where all the casinos were at. So, yeah.
All right. So now we are going to the Riddle House in West Palm Beach, Florida. So this is I would say a smaller location compared to the other ones that we have talked about. It's a cute little 2-story yellow home with an attic that has a window in the attic. So it was built in 1905, and the house originally was called the Gateskeeper Cottage. It served as a home to the people who would oversee the Woodlawn Cemetery that was just across the street. In the 1920s, Carl Riddle was gifted this home. And part of his job was to make sure, like, if we're going to gift this to you, you need to look over the cemetery, right? So he had employees, and one of Riddle's employees encountered financial difficulties, and he became despondent and withdrawn from his family. And seeing that there was no other way out, Riddle's employee went up into the attic and hung himself in the rafters.
Oh.
Yeah. After that tragedy, the beam that he used to hang himself with was permanently removed from the top story of the house. Carl Riddle's personal diary recounts how the family had trouble keeping up with the home, and the family reported hearing chains rattling on the stairs and like murmuring voices. Many would quit and not return to the house. Murmuring voices is really common. Whenever we hear things that are audible, a lot of the time it's like a murmur. It's not an actual like clear conversation. You just hear murmurings.
Yeah, so you can't make out the
You
words.
can't
but
quite make them out.
You hear that they're talking.
Yeah. Later, the house was actually moved to another location because they wanted to keep it. Otherwise, I think it was going to be demolished. During the reassembling of the Riddle house, the dark haunting inside reared its head again. When returning to work in the mornings, carpenters would find their tools thrown from the attic and onto the ground. Third floor windows would be found mysteriously broken, and at one point reconstruction had to stop for 6 months because the workers were so shaken up by what they had experienced inside. One of the visitors who had arranged for a private tour was struck in the head by a piece of wood on the staircase.
Oh, jeez.
The wood seemed to appear out of nowhere, and the maintenance worker was attacked while cleaning the building and refused to enter the house again. Another witness has spotted a hanging torso in the attic window, but later learned that there's no such mannequin that exists in the attic. And security personnel have seen lights go on and off in the building.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, the whole attic scene, that would be a little creepy for me.
Yeah.
Seeing just a torso hanging in the attic.
Yeah. I mean, or just while you're in there cleaning and you get attacked.
Hit in the head by a 2x4.
Here comes this board out of nowhere. Boom. It hurts not so much here or here.
More
right along here.
I don't see anything.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. That's another place I'd like to go.
I know that one would
investigate.
be a fun one.
How do you pick, right?
You don't. You just keep going.
You just do one a day.
This is true.
And you do all 50 in like a month and a half.
That's true.
That's not even in a day, man. That's like in a half a day.
All right. So now we're going to head over to Montana and the Copper King Mansion.
That's not a state.
Oh, geez. All right. So William Andrews Clark, who was born in 1839, he worked on a farm until he was about 14 years old. He then attended law school for a couple years and ended up teaching from 1859 to 1860. So he then moved westward to try his luck with the gold rush in 1862. So he arrived in Butte, Montana a few years late.
Whoops.
Then he decided to invest his profit by helping other miners, like, bringing supplies, recording claims, and making loans. He expanded his business ventures to newspapers, oil wells, railways, sugar plantations, and he actually even served as the senator in Montana from 1901 to 1907.
That's cool.
Yeah, busy man. Very driven.
Very driven.
Very driven. In Butte, Clark bought several mines. He built the first successful smelter and stamp mill in 1879. And he established a water company, an electric light company, and an electric railway.
What in the world?
Like,
I
told
one
you,
not enough?
this guy is driven. So people estimate.
Did he have even a family?
I mean,
Question.
that's a great question. Estimates on his wealth range from anywhere from 50 million to 200 million.
Holy.
And this is
Back in the 1800s, late 1800s.
This dude is Jeff Bezos rich.
Yes. There was a architect and he built the Copper King Mansion and it started in 1884 and it was completed in 1888. So this house must have been something else because it took 4 years.
And what is this house called again?
The Copper King Mansion. The imported materials cost the family about $200,000, and experts estimate the entire construction cost to be $500,000, which is equivalent to about half a day's income for Clark.
Oh my heavens.
Can you imagine?
Holy cow.
No.
And this house is like on a corner.
Yes. Whew. The home is a 34-room Romanesque revival Victorian mansion. So it has rounded arches over various doors and windows, cavernous entryways, thick masonry walls, and stone and brick, characteristic of the Romanesque revival architecture.
So
It's beautiful.
I think this is one of the bigger ones that we've talked about.
Yes.
I wonder what the square foot is on this.
I have no idea.
I'm going to look it up.
It's got asymmetrical design, like large windows, stained glass, decorative trim, characterize Victorian architecture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the interior contains hand-carved woodwork, and the home has antique furnishings, which is beautiful. A woman by the name of Ann Cope bought the Copper King Mansion in 1953, and her family actually continues to use and care for it. The mansion serves as a bed and breakfast year-round, from May 1st to September 30th.
Hey, that's another place we can go.
Yep. They have guides that lead tours through the mansion from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So they give you like the history, the people who built it, its architecture. They show you many of the artifacts. The bedrooms retain their style from 100 years ago with large beds, impressive woodwork, and personal connection to the people that once lived there. The rooms are labeled according to which family member resided there too. So you can stay in the same room where Williams Andrews Clark slept, which is kind of neat.
That is really cool.
They did restoration efforts in 2011, kind of to revitalize the exterior of the mansion. As for some of like the hauntings, they don't have a lot in this one that I have. Some guests of the inn have experienced, in quotes, a ghostly presence in the ballroom. And that's all that they report.
That is vaguely specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can dive deeper. I'm sure you can dig up more.
You want to hear something kind of crazy?
What's that?
So he was worth $200 million in 1884.
Between $50 million and $200 million.
So $200 million today
Yeah.
is $612 billion.
What?
Can you imagine that?
No.
That dude was uber rich.
Well, like they said, they estimated that it was $200,000 for some of the work done, and that's roughly what he made in half a day.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
$200,000. Yeah.
So that man probably was the richest man in the world
Yeah.
at that time, or
Very-
close to it.
Very possible.
He was Rockefeller rich. I mean,
See,
that's
and I'm honestly
crazy.
looking at this house and I'm like, why didn't he build it bigger?
Right?
You know, I'm
With
thinking
that
of
money?
like the Winchester Mansion.
Right.
You know how she just kept building and building and building and building? That sucker's huge.
Yeah.
This is like nothing compared to the Winchester.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was like more humble.
Maybe. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, this house is big. Don't get me wrong.
Like
it's big.
It didn't say whether he married or had a family. I'm sure that information's somewhere, but
He didn't have time. That man did not have
right.
time.
He, like I said, he was a go-getter. So it's
He
not
was.
surprising how much money he was worth,
But
like how much
also,
he had.
When
Yeah.
you're at that point, people do things for you. You know,
Right?
I'm sure he was like, yep, I want to invest in that. So you make that happen.
Yeah. I don't doubt it. I'm sure he had investments and
Oh, I'm sure.
all sorts of things going on. So he was a true businessman, really.
Yeah,
God,
really
that's
an on.
incredible.
I mean, you're talking about water and electricity and
Yeah.
and
Well,
railroads.
he was like a
and
self-made man. He
Yeah.
just
did
went from
what
a
he needed to do.
young guy, young 14-year-old working on a farm and just look what he did.
Yeah.
You know, not bad for getting to the goldfields late.
Exactly. He didn't get there and go, "Ah, shoot, I missed it."
I know.
No, he found a way
Yeah,
to make money and expanded and kept going.
you got to wonder: is it him that's haunting the house?
Well, and that's a great question. I'm sure if we dug deeper, we could
Find out,
find more accounts and whatnot.
or we just go there and find out for ourselves.
I'm
Well,
in. I'm
I vote
in.
for that one.
I'm
I
in.
do too. I do too. We're gonna move on to the Littlefield house in Austin, Texas. This house was built by George Littlefield in 1893, and at this time, if you guys remember or not, Texas is kind of involved with the South. The Civil War going on, they're kind of involved in with the South, with slavery, all of that stuff. By all accounts, to the public, George and Alice Littlefield were a loving couple, and they were universally adored throughout Austin.
Uh-oh. Let's scratch the surface a little bit.
Yeah, George had a small little secret. So
Dun, dun, dun.
his wife was, chances are his wife was unable to have children, so they weren't able to have children together. And so they doted over their 12 nephews and 17 nieces.
Wow.
George built his mansion. He intended to house as many children as he could.
Okay,
Okay.
this is sounding like the house on the Haunted Hill.
It very well could be. He and Alice even paid for all 29 of their college educations,
Oh my
Dang.
goodness.
all at the University of Texas at Austin. And you could say that they were just really adored by their families, right?
Here's the question. Do I want to be a family member?
Yes, just not his wife.
Oh.
What people didn't know at the time was that when George would go on an errand or a trip, he would lock his wife in the attic.
Oh, no.
He feared that the Yankees would swarm in and kidnap her, leading him to bolt the attic door with Alice inside.
You think that's really going to stop him if they really wanted to kidnap her?
No.
I mean, does he not lock the front door?
Oh, I'm sure, but you got to lock her in the attic too, just to keep her safe.
Oh, because that's going to make a difference.
Yes, it will.
Got it. I mean, yeah, makes sense.
As you can guess, being constantly locked in the attic, she starts to suffer from fits of hysteria. She lived in terror that she might be stolen away from George or worse, brutally murdered.
Oh, gosh.
On more than one occasion, Alice could be seen hurrying down the stairs. Her horrifying screams could be heard echoing throughout the mansion. George had little idea about what to do with his wife. He brought her to one doctor, to another, until one advised him to take Alice to a sanitarium.
I was going to say, that's where she's going to end up.
Yep. But George refused.
Oh,
Instead, he hired 3 nurses whose solo job was to comfort and care for his beloved Alice.
well, that's good.
Yeah, the beloved wife
That he,
locks in the attic.
yeah.
As legend goes, George Littlefield died of pneumonia in 1920. While Alice remained heartbroken, her mental condition began to improve after some time. She regained her zest for life and attended parties hosted by friends and family. When she died at the age of 88, she bequeathed her home to the University of Texas, and she is buried next to her beloved husband.
I wonder if they look back now that they're dead and they're like, I probably shouldn't have done that.
You gotta expect a little bit of doubt, right?
Like, I probably shouldn't have locked you in that room. Sorry about that.
Sorry. The most common paranormal experience in the house is the piano playing itself upstairs. Alice was the one who most frequently played the piano during life, and it makes sense that she would continue to play it after death.
They love their pianos.
They love their pianos.
Okay, now we're on to Rhodes Hall in Atlanta, Georgia. And I want to tell you this. I want to live here. It looks like a castle. It looks so freaking cool. I want this house so bad. Built in 1904, it looks like a castle. A tour guide was at the hall late one night, having just finished up an evening behind-the-scenes tour. She had just finished gathering up her belongings and was about to descend the back staircase when she heard someone creeping up the stairs towards her. Okay, heard it, didn't see it. She froze, her heart catching in her throat. No one else was supposed to be in this part of the building but her, and she had just watched the last of her coworkers leave. The footsteps were slow and heavy, and a third noise punctuated each step, like the tapping of a cane. As the footsteps grew closer, a deep male voice began to growl, "Get out! Get out!" The guide hoped and prayed it was just her coworkers trying to play a cruel joke on her, and she called out to them, but no one answered. So suddenly the ghastly shadow of an old, bent man appeared along the dimly lit wall, his hair wild, sticking up in all directions, his cane stretched out in front of him, and a deep male voice grew louder and louder until it was practically screaming, "Get out, get out." Not wanting to stick around for another second, the tour guide turned around and fled down the main staircase and out the front door, not even bothering to lock it up behind her, and she quit the next day over the phone and didn't return.
I don't blame her.
No
Right?
kidding.
That would scare the junk out of me.
That would be so
What?
intimidating and frightening. I mean, no way.
Well, it's one thing to hear that when you're in a group.
Yes,
It's a whole nother thing to hear that when you're by yourself.
exactly.
Right?
Because I can tell you from personal experience, I have had similar things happen to me while I was in a group and while I was alone, and it affects you completely differently.
Yeah,
I can imagine that this would terrify anyone.
Oh, yeah.
that is
I'm sure.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. I would have quit too.
I'm out of here.
Unless I work in pairs. Otherwise, I'm out.
Exactly. And this is why we never go alone.
Right?
This
Or
is
always
true.
at least in groups of two. All right. So next we're going to go to Nevada and to the governor's mansion. It was built between 1908 and 1909. And actually up until that time, Nevada's governors and their families really found lodging where they could in or near Carson City.
Oh, here I thought they were going to be in Vegas, hanging out the MGM Grand.
They passed a bill, and it's State Assembly Bill 10, and they called it the Mansion Bill, and it was passed in 1907 to secure a permanent site and residence for a governor's mansion. A woman by the name of Miss T.B. Rickey actually sold the land where the mansion now stands to the state of Nevada for $10.
Oh my gosh.
Woo!
Big money.
Yeah. And George A. Ferris, who was a Reno architect, designed the mansion with classic revival features and Georgian and Jeffersonian motifs. A construction bid was awarded for $22,000 or $22,700. And acting Governor Denver S. Dickerson and his family were actually the first residents when they occupied the mansion in July of 1909. And the building was first opened to the public during open house on New Year's Day in 1910. The governor's daughter, June Dickerson, was born in the mansion on September 2nd, 1909, and is the only child yet born in that mansion.
Today, the only child today up to today that's been born in the mansion?
Yes.
That is that is so hard to believe.
Yeah. In current days, it says when Nevada's first family is home in the mansion, it says that they're sharing their residence with the spirits of the very first family of the state.
Ooh.
Others have witnessed the ghostly forms of a woman and a young girl who seem to wander the property with an antique clock.
Wait, they're walking around with a clock?
Yeah, a woman and a young girl.
I wonder what this clock looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really
'Cause-
give much more on it.
Does she wear it around her neck?
She's not a rapper. Yeah, it's interesting. It leaves a bunch of questions.
It
But
does.
I'm sure if you want to do some digging,
Oh, there's so much more digging you guys
Yeah.
you
can do
could
on
find
this.
so much more.
Yeah.
We're just kind of touching on each one.
Now we're going to a state that none of us have ever been in or ever investigated in. Ever. The great state of Utah.
Oh, yeah, never been there.
Nope.
Never been there. Never investigated there.
Utah's a state? What?
Could be. I mean, it could be its own country by now. Who knows? So we're going to go to the McCune Mansion.
McCune.
One place I've actually asked about investigating.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, they didn't return my call.
Well, there's your answer.
Right? The construction for this mansion started in 1898 and didn't complete till 1901 and cost a princely sum of $1 million
Ooh. Back then?
back then.
Dang.
If we use that current conversion rate, that's about $300 million today.
Jeez.
Holy cow. And Kate, the entrance of this, because I've been there, not ghost hunted, but the entrance of this is huge. It's like this big circle that you walk into, like this, almost like a deck, like a big, huge circle.
That's really cool.
It's huge. It's beautiful.
Now I want to go see it. And guess what? We can.
We can. That's a short 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
The home is reported to be haunted by two ghosts. One, a girl who's about 10 years old, and there's even a picture of her hanging in the mansion.
Oh, that's
really? So they know who it is.
No,
What?
they don't know her name
So how do they know
Really?
it's the girl?
because it looks like the girl in the picture.
Okay.
cool. Where
well,
did they, I wonder where they got this picture from.
It's been hanging in the mansion the entire time.
So nobody knows.
So nobody
No.
knows.
Nobody knows.
The second spirit is an apparition of an adult male wearing a black cape and is typically seen around Christmas time.
A black cape.
Yes.
Does
And
he
no
have
one
a top hat and a cane.
I would imagine it's like when I
That's what I
envision this in my
envision.
head, I see a top hat and a cane as well. But they don't know who he is either.
Okay, that just doesn't make any sense.
This is what happens when you don't let paranormal investigators investigate your place.
We'll figure it out for you.
Well, yes, exactly. We'll help you out.
We'll put a name to that picture.
And then we'll just, have fun with it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I've seen some pictures of the inside of that place. It is gorgeous. We should just take a trip up there. Aside from the two ghosts that are in the mansion, there are reports of other hauntings happening in the house. So there's music coming from a room that was used during the time of the mansion was a music school. So you get footsteps that seem to begin and end in the middle of a room. Cold drafts when windows are closed. Doors opening and closing by themselves, even when they're locked. They'll open and close on
That's
their own.
cool.
And then lights turning on and off by themselves, as well as items and furniture being moved. So that place sounds super haunted.
Right? Let's go.
I think if we just because you can book the mansion for like a wedding or a Christmas
Yeah, but
party
you
or
know
something.
how expensive that would be because it's so big.
It'd be so awful.
But it's so cool though.
It would be awesome place to investigate.
Especially because nobody investigates there.
Exactly.
It'd be so cool to be. It's not very often, or if ever, you really get to be the first people to investigate a place.
No, that's really true.
It's rare that happens.
And generally, when that does happen, that's when people get a lot of stuff. Being the first people there,
Yeah.
because the spirits aren't used to that happening.
When they're curious.
Yeah. But then when it happens over and over and over again by tons of these people coming to investigate, things start slowing down.
Well, they get
they're like,
annoyed.
I'm not going to perform for you like I just did that last group,
Right?
Well, the curiosity's gone. They're desensitized to it.
They're bored with you.
They're bored.
Yeah. So, that'd be so cool. All right. To Hawaii we go.
Woohoo! Hawaii.
The Volcano House Hotel
Is it on a volcano?
in Volcano, Hawaii.
Is it in a volcano?
Hawaii.
Hopefully
Next
not the
to
one
it.
hopefully not the one that's been erupting.
So it was built in 1866, but a fire claimed it and was rebuilt in 1940. A former Volcano House owner and his family claimed to regularly see an apparition of an elderly woman. This ghastly woman has also been seen in guest rooms and wandering the hallways. Sightings of a ghostly white dog on the entrance road to the hotel has also been reported. There are many who believe this white dog is I want to say Pele. Pele, that's right. The Hawaiian goddess of fire and volcanoes in disguise, warning guests of death. Pele's curse, the curse states that anyone who takes a rock or sand away from the Hawaiian Islands will suffer bad luck until the items are returned. So each year, hundreds of visitors send packages full of rocks and sand back to the island to be relieved of their bad luck.
So I'm curious, if you go there for vacation, you get sand in every crevice and crack, and you accidentally take it home, are you like going to be plagued with bad luck until you like empty that sand out of your crack and send it back?
That is a good question. So I'm sure
Because it says rocks, volcanic rocks, and sand.
And let me tell you, there is sand to spare.
Yeah.
But, you know, that would mean that you're not showering while you're there. You would probably want to shower before you go home to get it out.
Sand gets
and
everywhere.
You shower. I'm telling you, okay, when we went there this last summer, and there were so many naked people that would just go. And
are you kidding?
No. And there are naked people that will just shower right there. Or because there is a lot of homeless people there, like a lot. I was surprised how many homeless people.
It's an expensive place to live.
Homeless. Well, it's really sad because it's so expensive that the natives, it's hard for them to afford it. It's so sad. When we'd go and shower, it was like you had to shower like 3 times before all that sand would get out.
And I doubt all of it.
Oh my
got off
gosh.
of you.
Well, and we carried sand home in our suitcases.
Oh, I'm sure.
Not on purpose.
Oh, no.
Maybe that was my problem this last year.
Ooh, I think we solved it.
I think we did.
I think we did.
We need to send that sand back.
Do you still have it?
Nope. I dumped it in my carpet and vacuumed it up.
Aw. Send the vacuum bag back.
I know.
It's in there somewhere.
Well, it's like I didn't even notice it until I'm unpacking, right? And I'm unpacking it all. And all of a sudden, there's like this pile of sand at the bottom. Like, dang it. So it's kind of one of those things you just tip it over and then you vacuum it.
Shake it out.
Mm-hmm.
You could have built a sandcastle.
But guess what else I did when I went to Hawaii?
What? Do tell.
While we were in Hawaii, we were just walking around. It was just my husband and I. We were walking around and we found this thing called Ghost Bus. So all it was a tour bus that they had turned into a ghost attraction. So instead of going to a haunted house, you're going on a bus. It was
awesome.
The coolest thing. So it's mainly from Japan. And what they did is when COVID hit, the people that were over this, they shipped a bus out to Hawaii because, it's not too far. They decked it all out and used it as a way to earn money because they're like, well, we can't just drive the buses anymore or cars, because nobody's going to be on them. So they started doing the ghost bus, and you watch a video at the beginning, and it's like a mini Japanese horror movie.
Cool.
That is supposed to be getting you into what goes on in the bus. I don't want to give it away because I want it to be fun. But if you end up ever going on this, and so you watch this video, so you're in it, and they go and they seat you on this bus, and then they turn off all the lights, and it is literally pitch black in there. They've got chains hanging. They've got lights that will shoot off. They fill the whole thing up with fog. I don't know. They have random things in there that look fake, but end up actually being real.
Wow.
And so it throws you off.
Which is what it's meant to do.
Uh-huh. And this bus inside actually shakes.
That's weird.
So it goes, I don't know. It was just so cool. So anyway, if you're ever in Hawaii, go to the Ghost Bus. It is so freaking cool. Alan and I, my husband and I, we had a blast on there. It was so much fun. Then afterwards, we were talking to them. They were super nice and told us the whole story of what happened. And it was just a cool experience. So I highly suggest if you're in Hawaii, go to the Ghost Bus.
Is there like a website that they can?
Yep. It's ghostbushawaii.com. It's all outside, right? So you don't wait. You just say, hey, I want a ticket for this time. And they're like, hey, come back at this time. We'll get you right in. And you do. It is the coolest thing.
That's so neat.
That is so cool.
That's really different.
It is. And that's what was made it like so awesome. We're like, that's not
It's completely
what
new.
I thought I was going to be doing in
Oh.
Hawaii.
That's too cool. I
Yeah.
like it. I like it.
That is awesome.
It's super fun.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to Nebraska and a place called the Captain Benson Bailey House, which is now a museum.
Of course. Surprise.
Yes.
Which is nice. At least we can go visit these places.
You can. Well, a lot of these places you can, actually, right? The Captain Bailey House Museum is a red brick, 7-gable, Gothic-style house. And they're thinking it was probably built after the Civil War, so like late 1860s, early 1870s. According to the Society of Architectural Historians, the 1.5-story brick building is a good example of what they called an I house. Like
An I house?
Capital I dash house.
Huh.
I think it's supposed to be I house, or is it supposed to be like Roman numeral 1? It looks like I house.
One house, I house. We'll call it both.
Yeah. So it's typically 2 rooms wide and 1 room deep with a central passage, an extension at the rear, much like my butt. Sorry. I had to. So it's got steeply pitched roofs and a symmetrical front elevation featuring 3 prominent gables with pointed arched windows extending into the gables and a 1-story full width porch.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, so it's an adorable home. It's not big, but it's adorable.
Much like my butt.
2 sides of the coin here. So the Captain Bailey House was built after the Civil War by Union officer Captain Benson M. Bailey, who served with 3rd Tennessee Mounted Infantry, which was a Union cavalry. In 1860, his first wife and infant daughter died, leaving him with their 3 children, William, Tillman, and Elizabeth Florence. So after the war, he married for a second time a lady who was from Tennessee and moved his wife and 3 of the children to Nebraska to start a brand new life together. Captain Bailey became a riverboat captain, and he actually made a pretty decent living doing that. The Brownsville home built here was perhaps, they're thinking, a wedding present to his second wife, as well as the new Bailey family home. The captain actually met his demise prematurely after being poisoned by a jealous neighbor.
Ooh, not good.
Which is why they think he is the one who's haunting the premises. So people have reported hearing phantom piano music and seeing doors mysteriously open and close.
So pretty
Common. Yeah, pretty common.
Then let's move on to Vermont, to the Bowman House Laurel Hall in Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury, huh?
Shrewsbury. That's like a mouthful right there. 1849, Bowman married Jenny E. Gates of Warren, New York, a dignified, well-mannered woman who was a devoted wife, mother, and kind neighbor.
Oh, nice.
Very nice things to say.
Sweet.
So the couple moved to Stony Creek, New York to establish tannery business. A few years later, in 1854, a daughter was born named Addie. Sadly, she passed away after 4 months.
Oh,
That seems like a common theme.
it is.
Young death, yeah.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Well, I mean, how many times have we gone to cemeteries and seen infant deaths?
Oh, so many.
In
It's
A
so
lot.
sad.
yeah.
Yeah.
Before 1900, there was a lot of infant death. They just, unfortunately, was a fraught time for people.
Mm-hmm.
In 1860, their second daughter, Ella, was born. And in 1879, at the age of 19, Ella became ill and passed away.
Did they say with what or
Didn't say.
Tuberculosis. Just kidding. I have no idea.
Could be yellow fever, scarlet fever,
Could be a lot of things.
the flu.
Ingestion.
Indigestion.
Indigestion.
Yeah,
Ingestion.
indigestion. I ingested myself and died.
What did
What
you
did she ingest, huh?
Less than a year later, Mrs. Bowman also died, leaving her husband the lone survivor of his beloved family.
Oh,
So
Sad.
in July of 1880, John Bowman, heartbroken, decided to construct a grand memorial for his family in his native Vermont. He found a piece of land near a burial ground in Cuttingsville, Vermont, and hired a New York architect and designer to oversee the plans and construction. Over the course of a full year, more than 100 skilled sculptors, stonecutters, masons, and laborers worked to build the Gracian-style mausoleum, and the cost was $75,000.
Okay, this is what I expect when I die. All right. When I die, I want somebody to spend that much money on me, and
It would be way more in today's dollars.
I'm plenty good with 75,000 nowadays.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, this would be probably somewhere in the $300,000 range.
Oh, I'm sure. But like, okay,
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. 75,000? No. It'd be $2.1 million.
She's still okay with it.
I'm still okay with 75,000. I want to be like, when I die, I want people to want to go to my grave. You know, be
You want
like
visitors.
one of the the unique headstones or unique graves or mausoleums or
Yeah.
you know, something where it's
Stands
like,
out.
this one's a little suspicious.
Suspicious or interesting?
Both.
Worth taking a closer look.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want
And
mine
if
to be the-
somebody doesn't do that for you, you're gonna haunt them.
oh, I'm gonna put I'm gonna scratch something in my headstone to make it look like
Claw marks.
you're right.
So the final touch to the mausoleum was a life-size statue of John Bowman himself standing outside holding a key to the family tomb. The eternal look of grief upon his marbled face, along with a mourning cloak, gloves, and funeral wreath as he walked up the steps of the tomb, are both kind of sad and haunting.
That's so
Ooh.
sad.
It's like he basically sculpted his sorrow and sadness.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
it's there for all eternity.
I
you
think
know?
for him it was like art,
I'm sure it was
right?
expression.
That's a way to express himself.
Yep, exactly.
In 1881, he arranged the 3 caskets containing the remains of his family placed within the tomb. He also arranged to have a greenhouse built upon the grounds, which provided plants to decorate the cemetery. In fact, it was such a remarkable sight that people would come to visit from miles away to picnic on the grounds. Inside the crypt is a life-size statue of his oldest daughter who passed away when she was only an infant. There's also busts of his wife and other daughter who tragically died.
Oh,
That's so sad.
So,
that poor sweet man.
and then a year later, he hired a designer to construct his Victorian-style mansion, which we called Laurel Hall, which is his summer residence.
Oh,
I want one of those too.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and just put me down for one as well?
Perfect. Bowman entertained family and friends at his opulent home until he passed away in 1891 at 75. He is also now buried within the mausoleum that's across the street.
Oh,
So he's not with his family?
He's with his family.
he is with his family, but he built it across the street
So-
from.
Oh.
His mansion that he built was just across the street from
okay, I
the
see what you're
mausoleum.
saying.
He had to be so full of sorrow to do that, to feel like he had to be that close to where they were buried.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because they were living in New York, and then he moved his dead family to Vermont.
Yeah.
And then have this thing constructed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeesh.
My goodness.
He wanted to make sure that, the mausoleum and his mansion were well taken care of. And so that he paid a sum of $50,000 to finance the ongoing maintenance of all of the property. But the house was to be kept in waiting readiness for him and his family to return.
Oh,
Oh, interesting.
So he was a kind of a
He-
stout believer in reincarnation.
Oh, I see.
So the instructions were keep the clocks wound, a fire in the fireplace, and lights in the windows at night, along with a hot meal at dusk.
oh man.
Dang.
The fund was depleted in 1953, at which time much of the furniture inside the mansion was sold at auction.
Oh.
So wait, when did he die? What year?
1891.
1891,
So that went on.
for almost 60 years.
Holy moly.
Actually, no, it did. 62 years it went on for.
Wow.
Wow.
What happened to the food?
Hopefully the staff was like, we're eating it, man.
Right?
You're not showing up. We're going to eat this meal.
Could you imagine,
Thanks for the free meal, dude.
can you imagine sitting down to take his food and eat it, and then the door slams open and in walks Bowman?
Oh,
You ate my dinner.
you'd be choking on that food.
Right? The mansion seems to be actually the focal point of the hauntings. So anyone who rented the house after 1953 claimed it to be haunted. It was left empty for a period of time, which generated rumors that the home was haunted. Tales of weird noises and strange lights had been reported to manifest themselves within the mansion. One tale told is the sounds of a phantom baby crying. And then an odd footnote is that no children ever lived in the house. So yeah, which is strange, right? If no child ever lived in the house, why would you hear a baby crying?
Yeah, I don't know, because it wouldn't be residual.
Exactly.
Interesting.
See, and that's what's hard for me to believe is that there's actually baby ghosts. Like, I really have a hard time.
Unless it's residual.
Well, residual, I totally,
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yep.
But to have an intelligent haunt by a baby ghost?
Yeah.
How would you communicate?
I'm sorry, but I don't really believe that.
As one might expect, strange and eerie experiences have been reported around the mausoleum as well. So it's kind of like a little bit of everywhere.
We need to go to that mausoleum and go do an EVP session.
Yes, we do.
Right?
That would be so fun.
So, and then as of 2016, the house has been unoccupied, but it's being maintained by the Laurel Glen Cemetery Association.
Huh. That's cool.
So might be available to go hang out in.
Maybe.
I'm there. Let's go. So next we have a favorite of ours, I guess. Idaho State Tuberculosis Hospital in Gooding, Idaho.
Yeah.
Hey, one we actually have knowledge of.
I know, because
Right.
we've been there. The building was originally a hospital. Well, I guess it wasn't a hospital. It was more of like a residence of the staff of the hospital where it's at right now. But it was, the hospital itself has been torn down since. But the hospital was specifically for patients suffering or dying from tuberculosis. But the locals do suspect that it became, a mental institution when the hospital closed its doors. So we tried to look this up and we didn't find anything that would coincide with this suspicion.
Not with the mental institution.
Yes.
But we did find that it was actually used for addiction.
Yes. It was used for multiple things. They did end up tearing the hospital part of it down, but the building that held the doctors and nurses and stuff of the hospital still stands. So we actually went there on a ghost hunt and
spent the night in the
Stayed
building.
a weekend.
yeah, it was interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
But they say that people see full body apparitions, shadow figures, voices in the room when nobody is in them, door banging, and random knocking. Now, for us, we experienced knocking, voices. I saw a full body apparition, and it lasted for a while. I was shocked. I actually got scratched there when I was by myself,
Growled at.
and I got growled at when I needed to go take a poo. And
It's not just go to the bathroom, folks. She had to go take a poo.
well, we were all in a room together, and it was getting pretty intense in the room. We were feeling it. And so I was like, guys, I'm sorry, pause, time out. I need to go to the bathroom. And it was one of those times where you're just holding it all day long. And you're like, I really just need to go. And so the hallways are quite large. And the closest bathroom was in one of the rooms. And so our friend was like, you can go into our bathroom. And I was like, okay. And so I started to walk out, and we're in this enclosed space, I guess. We had the doors closed.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk out and I take 2 steps,
If that.
if that. And all of a sudden I get this deep growl right in my ear. Now,
And-
mind you, it is loud enough. Everybody else heard it.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie and I were
Right there.
4 feet.
Yeah.
Right there. We heard it. It was like, whoa.
I turned around and my eyes were huge.
She came right back in.
Yeah. I was like, nope.
And she no longer had to poo.
Because it really scared the poo out of her. No.
No, I was like, I need a friend.
Yeah. So she ended up taking somebody with her. So
But, and that first night that after we got done investigating, you got someone blew in your face.
yeah, I thought, I don't know what I thought. I rolled over. You and I were kind of back to back. You were
Yeah.
laying the other way, and I was laying facing the nightstand on my side. And I just closed my eyes, and I kind of just cinched the blanket up to like my nose
Yeah.
a little bit. It was cold. We had the heater on. And it felt like somebody kind of pulled the blanket down off of my nose and blew like this Arctic air in my face. Like it was
wow.
that cold.
That's crazy.
And I opened my eyes expecting to see like somebody standing there. Like I
Yeah.
thought somebody would have been standing there and nobody.
Well, and then the next morning, I had the same thing happen to me.
When I went and took a shower.
But I thought, for whatever reason, it was a cold wind blowing from outside. Except there was no wind, and it wasn't really that cold.
No.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that place was freaking awesome.
Definitely want to go back.
Yes.
Definitely, definitely. All right. So now we're going to move on to New Hampshire and the ocean-born Mary House. So really the photo that I found is kind of an old, outdated photo, but it still stands today and is actually a private residence. One of the residents, they figure, might be Mary herself. So I don't have a lot of backstory on this one, but she's described as a ghost with bright green eyes.
Ooh.
So I don't know if they're just like striking green, vibrant, or if they're glowing green.
Either way, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. Mary's life was defined by the notorious pirate Captain Don Pedro, who had initially spared her young life in 1720 during a raid. She lost her first husband, right? And the pirate actually came back to marry her years later. She actually, when she lost her husband, she was living in the grand home, and she actually stumbled upon the murdered remains of her first husband.
Oh.
So it makes you wonder if like the pirate didn't send somebody to kill him
Yeah.
and, you know, and then came back for her to marry her years later after his travels or whatever.
Ew, yikes.
Yeesh.
So yeah, it's basically they're seeing, you know, a ghost with bright green eyes.
That's,
Like, what do you say?
I know.
What do you say? I
What do you
mean-
say? Ghost with bright green eyes. Ooh. So we're going to move to Maine.
I want to go there so bad.
Me too.
I've been to Vermont. I've been to New Hampshire, and I didn't go to Maine, even though I was really close. We are going to talk about Captain Lord Mansion in Kennebunkport. So this mansion was originally built in 1812. What's interesting is the Captain Nathaniel Lord. He was a shipbuilder, and so that's how he made his money, right? Well, in 1812, there was this war going on.
I wonder what war that could have been.
I don't know. But the British blockade Kennebunkport, and so he couldn't make any money building ships. So what does a fastidious individual do? He says, hey, all of you shipbuilders that I've got not doing anything, come build me a house. So he had him build him a mansion, and that way he didn't have to furlough any of his people.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Well, and it's like, it looks like a big square.
It really does.
It's a 3-story big square
Big
house.
yellow square.
Yep. With like a freaking buttload of windows. Half that house is windows.
Yeah, which, it's nice to have like a lot of natural light coming in.
I mean, I agree, but it looks a bit excessive if you look at it.
Yeah. Well, he had a whole year to build it and a bunch of or labor to do it. And,
Yep.
you do what you got to do. So 4 generations of the Captain Lord family lived in that house. And, they kept it up, updated, certain things to make, keep it up with the times, essentially. But in 1972, Captain Lord's great-great-granddaughter,
Oh my goodness.
Julia Buckland Fuller, found herself in a little bit of tax trouble.
Uh-oh.
And she was forced to liquidate the estate, including selling the furniture to meet the tax money obligation. And then the manor was put up for sale.
That's sad. That's a long time that they stayed in that home.
Yeah, 4 generations of
Wow.
family. And then you get the one family member that just blows it all.
I know. And what does she really have to pay for?
Taxes, and she obviously didn't like to pay her taxes.
Well, this is a big house.
This is true.
So there is electrical,
Yeah, and that was 1972, so
Yeah.
got to pay electric, gas, all of that fun stuff. So 6 years later, the mansion was given a new lease and a structural use with a sale of this property to Dev Bavis and Rich Littlefield. These new owners were inspired to bring back the home to its historic federal-style mansion and bring it to its former glory. So doors, floors, woodwork, all stripped.
Oh, wow.
Layers of paint exposing gleaming oak. 22 fireplaces.
Holy cow.
The original to the inn were repaired and upgraded to gas, using old photographs showing the interior of the mansion and poring over restoration books. Bev and Rich were able to replicate the 19th century wall coverings and paint colors.
Oh, that's so cool. See, that's who you want to have your house.
Right? So they decorated the guest rooms with 19th century four-poster beds, the other 19th century and other 19th century antiques. In the Ophelia room, the four-poster bed located there once belonged to the Lord family themselves.
Oh.
The descendants probably sold it back to the new owners, wanting it once again to be in the mansion. When Nathaniel Lord built his home almost 200 years ago, little did he know that this former home would now be, one, on the National Place of Registry, and two, one of the premier inns on the Maine coast.
It's an inn. Let's go.
It is an inn.
I'm ready.
So apparently, Phoebe Lord, who is the widow of Captain Lord, she's the one that said to be kind of haunting the location. Although I didn't get any information about what she does while she's haunting there.
We can use our imagination.
Yeah.
Footsteps, knocks,
Cold spots,
doors opening, closing.
Purring cats.
all of those things. But she did raise the couple's 9 children by herself.
Ooh, 9 children. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, they had space.
They definitely had space.
I mean, yeah, it's not like they didn't have the room.
Yeah, they most definitely had the room for all of that. All right.
End of round 2.
End of round 2, everybody.
Woohoo!
Want to thank you for holding out and getting through these 18 states, which means we've got just a handful left for the next round.
One more podcast to go on this.
One more listening round for your guys' enjoyment. We'll be posting some pictures of all these locations on our social media accounts. And where can they find us?
You can find us on Facebook at Cold Spot Paranormal Research, as well as Paranormal Peeps Podcast.
And on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research. And on Twitter at CPR Paranormal. And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.